and that's great, and that's good. So praise God for it. But I say all that, if you are even watching on the internet, grab a notebook, grab a pen, and to connect with some things. I really believe what Mark and Terry here are sharing with us, it's part of a whole total package. And as a pastor, if there's just one thing I would say, it would be this, and that is, this isn't some dieting class. This isn't a new way of doing the keto diet. This isn't just get the weight off. This is a lifestyle that enables God to move in your life. You know, if you were hurting financially, I would say, as a pastor, have you done your part? Your part might be tithing. Has God laid an offering to give somebody and you've just been rebellious and stubborn? You know, as we do our part, God does His part. Dr. Mark, I find that there's a lot of people praying for healing. Maybe we've not always done our part on this health part, you know, the food part, some things that I need to do that causes Him to do His part. And so I just find it absolutely amazing. So enjoyed this morning. Brother, I want you to come on up and hang out in this area here as the internet is being used, and we appreciate you. We love you, man. Praise God.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, folks. Thank you so much. We're going to do kind of more of a teaching back and forth tonight. The session this morning was more formal. I had some information I felt like I had to get out there. Maybe it was too heavy. Maybe it was not interactive enough. Terry and I have talked it over quite a bit today. She is my coach, and my coach wasn't necessarily pleased with the performance, but I pray that the message got out there. It is a very heartfelt message of mine. Before I get started, because one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to pause regularly for questions. One of the things that came out of our discussion is that I'm probably a better teacher than I am a preacher. And so I need people to draw out of me the information that's there, because it just left spontaneous. I just kind of go over to this rabbit hole and over that rabbit hole. And, you know, we ran into that, Pastor, with Sunday school. You know, I just kept trying to shove a lot of information. Probably 50% of it wasn't even necessary or pertinent for, you know, the audience that we were dealing with. And so, you know, I want to be relevant. This is a relevant thing to me. This is a passion of mine. This is not, you know, I'm not just here, you know, to whatever. I actually have a purpose, and my purpose is I want to save as many as possible. I have a burden for the sick and the weak, and that's why I'm in medicine. But, you know, through the years, that has just really been difficult to execute. And He has given me a revelation that may make it possible for us to actually go out there and heal people and move people and get them equipped to be, you know, disciples of Christ. And so I'm just so excited about that. But anyway, so I'm going to pause here. Questions about this morning? Okay. So just to kind of recap, you know, I think the important parts of that were that, number one is that you are really a new creation every 10 years. Every cell in your body is restored or repaired or replaced. And the better we make that milieu where that process happens, the better you eat and bring in all of these other health, longevity things that we'll be talking about, will dictate how well you come back in 10 years. You know, will you be better in 10 years than you were 10 years prior? One of the things we didn't talk about in the talk this morning is the difference between chronological age and metabolic age. You know, you heard me talk about Moses being 120 years old, yet his eyesight was not dim, and his strength had not abated. Well, how can that be, except that he chronologically was 120 years. He metabolically was only maybe 60. I mean, we know we can do glycosylation testing on the DNA, much like we do, the A1C is where we check how much sugar has attached to the red blood cell, and we can check that every 3 months, and we can get an average of your blood sugar. We can do the same thing with your DNA. Sugar attaches to the DNA. It attaches to anything. It's sticky. The table, your fingers, or your DNA and your cells. And so we can actually measure the difference between your biological age and your chronological age. And one of the persons that I follow has actually, he is actually 64. He's actually my age, but his chronological age is 20 years less than his biological age is 20 years less than his chronological age. So is what we saw with Moses really, was Moses chronologically 120? And was he biologically actually 60? Or what if he was arrested? What if his biological age arrested at 33? What would that be like if we had a world of chronologically aged people, but they, oh yeah, but they got, biologically arrested at 33. Wow. It is a promise of the Bible. And Lord, why not? Why not? We have everything we need to be 120 years. Why don't we have everything we need to stop our biological clock at 33? So anyway, not something we talked about, but I think it's a real thing. We'll see as we move on here, and any who take on the challenge will kind of see what happens to them. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And the other thing that then, before I move on and get away from this morning, and I appreciate everybody this morning, but is that, the mitochondria really are a big deal. They really, really are a big deal. I don't care if you don't think that they're the soul, not the soul. I have my opinion about it, but I'm telling you from a medical, a physiological, everything sciencey, science calls them the powerhouse of the cell. So you decide yourself where they came from. I have an opinion, but whatever your opinion is, everything you do, everything that comes in on your fork, everything that comes in on your spoon is going to drive these mitochondria. Every illness we have, we're finding out now that we can put patients with mental health issues, autism, depression, ADHD, you name it, all of it, schizophrenia, something we have had a great deal of problems dealing with in modern medicine. Even, so, Lord Jesus, slow me down. So, the ketogenic diet, does anybody know why we have a ketogenic diet? It is actually from the 1960s. It was developed because they found out if you gave kids who had seizures a ketogenic diet, their seizures quit. Still today, if we have an intractable seizure disorder that blows through all of the pharmaceutical meds that have been manufactured, the best way to treat that child is a good, clean, ketogenic diet. And we can stop seizures. So I say that because mental health is a big problem here. And we've already talked about how one of the things that happened to me during that period of time was I really got foggy. I really did ask God, Lord, am I really, do I belong here? Things were falling off my plate, and that's an intolerable thing for me. I cannot stand that. And I can tell you, and I think Terry would testify, that my mind is sharper now than it was 10 years ago. I mean, it's just one of those side effects that happen, as you start this longevity in the way of Christ. So the mitochondria, what we've sacrificed to them, however you want to decide on your own about who they are, what they are to us as a Christian, science says they are the powerhouse, and you do not have any energy unless those things are functioning properly. And just like a car, the Lamborghini we talked about, if you were running it around in an E85 and you pulled up to the Mustang, the top Mustang, and you were going to do a race, and you had E85 in there, it ain't going to go well for you, and you're going to be pretty embarrassed. And I think as a population, we have had that kind of phenomenon where we're feeding our bodies E85 fuel, and we just get really surprised about why they're malfunctioning at such young ages. I mean, when we start talking about gastric bypass for adolescents, we start talking about fatty liver. I don't know if anybody knows about fatty liver, but fatty liver only used to be a thing if you were an alcoholic. If you were an alcoholic, you filled your liver with fat, and the liver died and quit working, and the only choice is a transplant. But we've got 12 and 16-year-old kids now, because of this sad American diet, that are facing the question of, what do we do with fatty liver? And so, those are the things I deal with every day, and they're breaking my heart, especially when I know that all chronic disease is caused by mitochondrial dysfunction, and all mitochondrial dysfunction is reversible with lifestyle changes. And I don't mean in a few years. I mean in a few days to a few months. So one of the things that Terry's going to pass out a couple of handouts here. If you'll put up the first slide there. I want to do some, before we move on, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping stuff here. So we are going to be, I'm going to ask you to consider doing these lifestyle changes. Each week we'll talk about, today it's food, and maybe the first one. Is that not the first one? Maybe I just I'll pull those up later then, guys. I'm sorry, my bad. So, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to try to do the pillars of health. We talked about faith this morning. That was what this morning was all about, was faith. I really think that you have to believe that this can be true for you, or you will never make it happen. And I can just tell you from my testimonies from people that I follow, and people that I've actually counseled, coached, that have made these same changes, and what happens to their body happens very, very quickly. And so one of the handouts will be a health questionnaire, and you'll actually see on there that it says 10-day detox diet. Pastor and I do not like the word diet. We like lifestyle, but of longevity. But this is a pretty good little questionnaire, and it has a lot of symptoms that you may not recognize, but as I've talked to people, and myself including, these things really they were problems, and we just thought they were old age. How many things do we live with that are just old age? And lo and behold, they are not old age, they are mitochondrial dysfunction. And so as you start taking better care of your mitochondria, then you see a resolution of these symptoms. And so this is actually a 10-day detox. I'd actually consider doing that, but it's a pretty aggressive, lots of rules, and I just feel like the church needs to hear that this is super simple. In fact, I was telling Terry this morning, I can't remember the verse, but it's kind of like the official that went down and talked to one of the prophets, and I think he had leprosy, and he said, oh, well, just go to the Jordan, and dunk 7 times. He was mad as a hornet, Well, aren't there enough mud holes in where it was? And I think appropriately so, his servant said, well, if he'd have told you to do something difficult, you'd have done it. But because it was simple, you wouldn't do it. And so this is a 10-day detox, and this is Mark Hyman. He is actually the head of the functional medicine clinic at Cleveland Clinic. And if you do podcasts, he'd be a great one to listen to, Dr. Mark Hyman. But he's a functional medicine doctor, and this 10-day detox is one of the things he does. The other place that if you really want to get into detox, it would be the Whole 30. And I really like their system. I'd really ask you to do this 30 days first, though, because they're going to add a lot more rules. Now, and why is that necessary? So what we'll see as we start moving into this lifestyle, these lifestyle modifications, is that a lot of these things will go away. All of these symptoms, a lot of these symptoms that are on this sheet, if you have any, are the ones that you have, and probably some that you don't even have, and you might even just write those on the back if you want to. But you're going to find out that they go away pretty quickly. And so, but there are some stubborn things. Carrie got into, when we first started doing this, she had a rash that was right here on her arm that had been there for a long time, and we could never figure out, what was causing it. Thank everybody for sitting over here. Thank you. I didn't realize that. You said that, but I didn't realize it. Yeah, so, so we just kind of started an elimination on her, and lo and behold, it wound up being cashews. And she loved cashews. And so she stopped the cashews, and the rash went away, and she's not had it since then. And so that's the thing that the detox we'll get into. We won't deal with it this 30 days because I think we can probably get 80% of the symptoms resolved with just what we'll be talking about of whole food. And I don't think we have to get any more complicated than that. We're going to be talking about whole food. We're going to be talking about fasting. We're going to be talking about fitness, which is going to be things like exercise, but other things, things like hormetic things, hormesis, or helpful stresses. He says, count it all joy when trials and tribulations come against you. What we'll wind up seeing is that there's a number of longevity switches that get flipped when we are stressed. Not the kind of stress that goes on and never quits, but like a cold shower. You do a warm shower and then you turn the cold water on for a minute or two before you get out. Yeah, that flips longevity switches and causes the body to rebuild and reboot. Fasting is another hormetic stress. It causes the body to go, oh my goodness, we're starving. And so those mitochondria go in and they go, anybody that's dysfunctional's got to go because we got to hold we don't have enough fuel, and so we only are going to fuel the ones that are healthy. And so anybody else gets discarded or repaired or replaced. Sleep, we're going to find out, is really, really important because all of the maintenance happens when we sleep. We should be getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And if we don't get that, then while we're eating, 50% of your energy goes to digestion. It is a very expensive process. And so if you're eating, I think you or maybe Pastor David said 17 times a day. Yeah, but that's I mean, the body never has a chance to go back into rest and repair. And so it's just all it can do to keep up with trying to get some ATP out to get you some level of function. And it's a dysfunction at its best. So Anyway, long and short of that is, I'm sorry to delay that, but so this is a questionnaire. I'd really like for you to go ahead and fill it out today. Don't put your name on it, and the reason for that is I really would like to have these back at the end, and I don't want to be able to identify you, but I want to know what happened to you. Any notes you want to put on the back of it. But the other thing about this is that so many of these things, and Terry and I can testify that so many of these things will quickly go away, and you'll forget they were a thing. Like we talked about this morning. I mean, it was, and Terry can testify, that I routinely every morning got up and went straight to my bureau and got a Tylenol because I couldn't get out of the bedroom without having that Tylenol. I hurt and ached so bad. I haven't had a Tylenol now in several months. And so I don't even think about that. You know, back then I can remember thinking, Lord, is this really what happens in old age? Is this really what happens when you're 64, 65? Is this it? And lo and behold, it was not it. And so I think it'd be helpful if we would fill this out and in 30 days see what changes, you know. The other thing is a handout on supplements. Not a lot of supplements. You know, I caution you to think about the superfoods because, again, the world would love to. It's interesting how now that, you know, we have kind of collected or gotten on to this idea that, wow, maybe eating God's foods are healthy. Maybe fasting is healthy. Maybe, you know, the other lifestyle things are healthy. It's interesting how if you get on the internet, oh, man, now it's this supplement is a super supplement or this fruit is a super fruit, you know. No, God didn't say that there was one special one. He said, eat the rainbow, you know, do all of them. Because quite honestly, there is there is some problems when we go into a monoculture. We see that in agriculture all the time. You know, if you plant the same thing all the time, the amount of diseases you get, the depletion of the nutrients and stuff, each year that soil cannot produce that corn crop or whatever it is. And so, but anyway, so I'm not, I do several supplements, and I do more supplements in all honesty than is here. But I think as a church, we need to try and keep it simple. But these are definitely things we are not getting enough of. Fish oil, of course, vitamin D3. We talked about this morning how it's crazy. If the vitamin D level was greater than 50, the patient didn't even get COVID. Yeah, Terry never got it, and hers is 60. We've done testing, and hers is 60. And we thought that maybe she was just couldn't get it or something. Well, we were right, but we didn't know why we were right. And so, vitamin D is also really important in immunity as well as zinc. The other thing that will happen once you start moving into this whole food diet, particularly if you take more of a Mediterranean stint, there will be a lot more fiber in your diet, and constipation will become a problem. If it wasn't, for me, it never was a problem. I actually had problems the other way, and probably something in the processed food was actually causing me to have irritable bowel kinds of symptoms. I always thought it was stress, and certainly it was worse with stress, but probably it was food more than even stress now. Mag citrate, magnesium chelated. You can even take milk of mag and mix mag citrate. Makes a nice daily supplement of magnesium and to help you with your constipation. So I'm going to pause there. Questions about what I've said so far? I'm perfectly okay. In fact, my zinc is actually mixed with vitamin C. So I'm not saying that anything the Lord lays on you, and that's what I'm saying. I probably actually do in reality about 10 different supplements. But they're things that the Lord has laid on my heart. It's not things that I picked up as this is a super supplement you have to have. I would say that this is the E85 list of supplements. Okay, so it's the minimum that you ought to be doing, but all of us are, if you really look, are probably, and don't forget the multiple vitamin too, because that's going to have vitamin C and stuff in it too. And so a good multiple vitamin, I think, is important. I didn't say that. I went straight to the fish oil, but I think that's important too. Any other? Yes, ma'am. Yes, you can. It's pretty unusual and it's pretty hard, but really, it. We talk about the Goldilocks uh, way of eating and living. We really don't want too little, and we really don't want too much. We want just enough. Now, like I said, Terry and I have actually done testing, and you can get that with testing. But I think as long as you stay at this level of the 2,000 international units, you're not going to get into trouble. That's kind of, Mark Hyman is actually where I pulled this from, and the Cleveland Clinic's done a lot of those studies to look at how much is too much. But yeah, even God's food, if you want to eat only fish every day and no other meats, there will be some problems with that. It is, he meant for us, he said you can have all seed-bearing plants. He didn't say you could have one or two. He said you could have them all. And I think the inference there is that you should be doing a lot of them. Now, there's lots of duplication as we start talking about phytochemicals and phytonutrients and all the vitamins and stuff that are in plants. There is a lot of overlap. But yes, you can. We can always overindulge and get into trouble or underindulge. Yeah. Yeah. You may, at your next doctor's visit, you may want to say, hey, would you run a vitamin D3? That's getting to be, go ahead, what you say? Yeah, because it might be, you may be getting to that level, especially if you're out in the sun a lot. We naturally make vitamin D in the sun by our skin. I think the doctors, since COVID, are getting a little more willing to do the lab and stuff that needs to be done. It's just like following diabetics. It makes no sense to follow an A1C and not follow an insulin level, because insulin is the problem. It's not the solution, it's the problem. All diabetics are hyperinsulinemic. And so, we really need to kind of start looking at this from, the other end of the spectrum. But so people are being, doctors, since COVID, we've seen things like vitamin D was never an issue before. No vitamin was an issue before, but now they're going, oh, wait a minute. And, of course, cancer therapy is where we're seeing a lot of this kind of stuff explode. Because cancer is really initiated and maintained and kept under control with our diet and the mitochondrial support there. Any other questions? Terry, do you have any? Mm-hmm. Anything else? No? Yeah. 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 Right, right. No, that's not weird at all. And in fact, so yeah, Terry was talking about your energy level, and we kind of had this conversation in Sunday school, and I don't know that we really addressed it, but the other thing that has happened to us as we are addicted to sugar is that we actually burn two fuels. We burn glucose, which we talked about today, but we can burn ketones or short chain fatty acids. And we can go, it bypasses the liver altogether. It can be absorbed from the intestines and goes directly to the cells, and the mitochondria can use free fatty acids. That's what triglycerides are. They're carrying free fatty acids to the cells for metabolism. So what she was saying is that when you eat 17 times a day, a SAD, standard American diet, you never see ketosis, never. So you store fat, but you don't have any ability to pull it out. In fact, your insulin levels will be high enough that the insulin refuses to relinquish fat to be used for fuel. The only way you can do that is through fasting, because fasting actually shoves the insulin levels down low enough that the body can go to the fat stores and say, I need fat to use for fuel. But in fact, what we'll hear talked about is things like keto flu. Anybody who's familiar with that diet, those people, as they start that diet, they get the keto flu. And what they're doing is that their body doesn't flip that switch anymore for ketosis. It's all rusted up. And so what they do is, instead of flipping the switch when you would need some fat, is they make you hangry, okay? So hangry is the withdrawal of glucose. And so as you withdraw from glucose, you get more hangry, and what's everybody around you mobilized to do? Get the guy some sugar, right? And so that's what she's talking about, is as you move into this transition from a sugar burner to a fat burner, there's a process that has to happen where we start working that switch and flipping it back into where you can get into ketosis. And for me personally, that's about 16 hours, 16 to 20 hours, because you forgot to burn all of the glycogen that's stored in the liver and in the kidneys. And only then can you go into the ketosis. But what she also said was, once you get into ketosis, that is a low insulin state. And so insulin is no longer triggering your hunger. So hunger, for the most part, goes away in ketosis. You don't deal with hunger. Hangry is absent in ketosis because its driver is insulin, and you've just shoved insulin into the basement. And so it can't control you anymore. And so, and the other thing she talked about, which is really important, and that is that the processed foods have put so much sugar that they overwhelm our taste buds. So that to taste sugar now, it's not a pinch. We got to have a tablespoon. If we don't have a tablespoon of sugar, it's not sweet. I mean, how many people have watched people doctor their coffees? They don't put one packet of a sweetener in. They put 15. I'm going, are you drinking sweetener or are you drinking coffee? I'm not sure. I can't tell. And so as you notice, as you come off of these processed foods and into a whole food diet or lifestyle, what you're going to see is that your taste just explode. Things that didn't even used to have taste, you'll start tasting them. Things that, particularly whole food, and I think that's a blessing. What the industry's done is they know God put a taste bud in there for us so we would go seek the good whole food to eat. So what did they do? They just pulled that little piece of sugar, substitute whatever out, and put it at 1,000 times what you would normally get out of whole food, and now you cannot taste sugar. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was talking to Terry. If I get a little sad or depressed or something's going on, just go by the pantry and grab a cookie. It's immediate rush. Hey, yeah, we're good. Let's go again. Yes, what she's saying, you're hiding, you're not dealing with what's going on at the moment. And so when you say, I'm going to fast and I'm not going to have the sugar, I'm not going to eat the 2 meals, really, when you couple, this is what I'm excited for your teaching, is it is the way of the Lord to dedicate our temples back to the Lord, that we're not going to allow the impurities. And I've been looking and looking, I can't find it. I just read it a couple of days ago. But Paul says somewhere in my paraphrase, your body is the judgment of the Lord. And so our bodies are our testimony. Everybody can judge by our bodies what we've been putting into our bodies, or the way we talk is judgment to the way we're thinking. Our emotions is also a judgment to what's going on in our spirit and our soul. And instead of being condemned by that, to be able to take it to the Lord and say, let's get to the bottom of this. do I need to walk in faith? What do I need to let go? What's really bothering me? Where does the hurt and the pain, where is that generated from? Hiding behind food instead of dealing with the issue. That's, yeah.
So, so you've unpacked a number of things. Number one of the things that happens when you're in ketosis is you start burning fat. Fat is a storage port for our toxins. When the body has a toxin, it stores it in fat. So as you start mobilizing fat, you're mobilizing fat and toxins. That's why a daily bowel movement is really important if you're fasting, because they'll come through the liver, they'll be deposited through the bile into the intestines, and if you're evacuating on a regular basis, then those toxins will go on out. But the body has the ability to reabsorb those toxins again and put them back in fat storage. And so part of what might have been going on, I don't know, Lord only knows, but what might have been going on is that you may have been mobilizing some toxins that have been there for years and needed to come out. It's just that you were in supercharged disposal mode, and you were mobilizing a lot of those toxins, and they would have an effect on your brain. The other thing that I would say about that is that I know when I'm fasting, this idea of getting close to God is a no kidding deal. It is a no kidding deal. I mean, the relationship that you have when you're deep in a fast, I understand now when he says, pray continuously. That never made sense to me. How do I say, well, Lord, help, Lord? I'm telling you, I understand praying continuously. It is a doable thing, and the power that comes from that walk, it just explodes. It just blows you away. And so that alone is enough to seek that. The other thing I would say about this is that one of the things that we misunderstand, and I think modern medicine has done this, is a symptom is a cry of the body that something's not right. If your finger is hurting you, it's your mitochondria in the joint saying, I'm hurting. They don't need a Tylenol or a Motrin. They need you to figure out what you need to do to restore normal function. We see that a lot, particularly now, with all the drug epidemic, and the street drugs and stuff. Those are powerful depletants of mitochondrial function, and so those folks will get very dysfunctional. And boy, there's just no way to turn it off. You just can't get them enough energy to turn it off. The other thing I would say is that kudos on the one a day. I like the one a day too, but I'll tell you, probably for the most people, that's probably more aggressive than from a longevity standpoint, it's more aggressive than we have to be. Now, if God lays on you to do that, then I think we should do what God lays on our heart. But probably the 8 and 16 is actually the one that I would want most people to what's that? I'm sorry. Oh, you have trouble, Barb? Can you hear me, Barb? Okay. So now on the 16:8 though, you still probably, if you're a sugar burner, and you don't have that switch for ketosis greased up, you probably need to do that very slowly. You need to start out at 12 and 12. And then a week later do an 11 and 13. And then a week later, a 10 and 14, until you get to the 16 and 8. Because I don't want anybody getting sick over this because the body moves in a positive way quick enough that there's no reasons for us to, go, really deep right now. Let's get the switches going again. They've been broken and malfunctioning for so long. Let's start living the lifestyle of longevity, and then we just work ourselves in. 12 and 12, there's nothing wrong with a 12 and 12 fast. That's a very healthy fast. And so, anyway, the other thing that I alluded to it, but all of these symptoms that we have are really not things to be extinguished, which is what we try and do in modern medicine. We really ought to be going to the root of the problem and saying, why is the body crying out, in pain? Is there something we can do? And certainly moving away from the SAD diet, where most of us are eating 50 to 70% of our calories in the SAD diet, would be very helpful for that. Any other questions? Okay.
You can put in water, but it's the water that you need. It's what keeps the motors greased up. It's not the sodas, it's not the alcohol, it's not the juices. Those are all high in sugars. Be very careful if you're going to get something to put into your water. You're not going to put just regular fruit in, or if you're going to get a flavored water, watch out that it doesn't have the high corn syrup in it, the aspartame in it. Read it for added sugars, because they will put them in there. Gatorade is one of the worst. Propel is not good. You just need to watch and read labels. Make sure that you're getting plenty of water. You can tell very quickly when you're getting dehydrated because your urine changes colors. So if you have a dark yellow urine, you're dehydrated. If you're mid-yellow urine, you're dehydrated, very light. So make sure that you're watching water. Very, very important that you, especially in the summer, that you maintain water.
So we talked about the measurements thing. Did you hand out the tapes too? So probably the best way to assess about visceral adiposity or belly fat, this is the stuff that we want to get rid of. And Pastor David's been teaching us that not even God said we could eat that stuff. We had to burn that up. And so it's interesting that is the most toxic fat that we've got. This fat doesn't hurt us. Even this fat doesn't hurt us. But this fat is a disaster, and it makes us very, very sick. Lots of inflammatory cytokines come out of there. It produces its own hormones. That's why if you see somebody with, we called it a beer belly back in the day, those guys would also have female apparatus, as well as, they would grow facial hair in the women because of the testosterone that's actually produced in this adipose tissue around the gut. But I said that to say that you can use weight, but weight's a big liar. It's a really big liar. I mentioned today that I can actually move 10 pounds in a day. And the reason for that is, especially if I'm in ketosis, what ketosis does is it releases water. That was one of the byproducts as we were looking at this circle of life. And so if I'm fasting, I'll lose a lot of weight, but a lot of that will be water. And so I can lose 10 pounds in a day, but it's not 10 pounds. As soon as I start drinking and eating again, then, maybe I lost a pound or two, which is generally, the case. So I don't think weight is a very good tool. I think that the other thing that we have seen is just the waist circumference. 40 for a male. Anything less than a 40 in a male or 35 in a female is supposed to be okay. But the real measurement that is most helpful is called the waist to hip ratio. And what that is, you take these 3 fingers, you put the one finger on your superior iliac crest, and then the other on the 12th rib, and then lay this middle finger on your abdomen. And that's where you're going to put the tape measure around your abdomen. And that will be your abdominal circumference, or the waist circumference. The hip circumference will be, it's supposed to be over the greater trochanter of the femur, but probably the easiest way is just the widest part on your buttocks. Whatever would get you the best number, because you're going to divide this one into the other number, and if you're a man, you want that number to be less than 0.9, and if you're a female, you want it to be less than 0.8. And again, I would like for you to record that today or the next day or so, and then let's record it again at the end of the sessions and see, where we've done. I'll just tell you, a lot of people, because of what we were talking about with the dietary things, a lot of people don't think we don't even count calories, right? This is not a diet. This is a lifestyle. We expect these things to happen. Now, Lord, how much are we going to get? We're not worried about the calories. If it's God's food, you cannot eat too much. To give you an example, I'd written down here like a Route 44 cherry limeade was like 430 calories, And so that was, to eat that in cauliflower, to get 1,000 calories. Well, let me just say it this way. To get 1,000 calories in a limeade, you would have to eat 32 cups of cauliflower. So you are not going to eat too many calories on God's food plan. You can't do it. It's impossible. And so we don't even look at calories. And a lot of people, the whole 30 person, she doesn't even think we ought to be looking at weight. Because she said that's not the focus. The focus is on the lifestyle. And so I'll just throw that out there.
And when you look at weight, God built everybody differently. I'm 5'6", but I have big bones. It's way more than somebody who's petite. Someone who's built verbosely has more weight than someone who's tall and skinny. And so weight is just a number that somebody that was very, very mean came up with. It was a mean person. And so, it's going to be more about how you feel in your clothes, where you want to be, and it's more about your self-image and nothing to do with what the scale says.
Questions? So I do want to touch base here before we part as far as, what should we be eating? Basically it's take out the bad stuff, put in the good stuff. Any diet works. Honestly, we talked about, are we on a diet? Probably the Mediterranean comes closer to being the whole food diet than anything else. But if you want to do paleo, if you want to do keto, if you want to do carnivore, if you want to do vegan, as long as it's God's food, it doesn't matter. You eat what you want to eat. If it is carnivore, you need to remember that there are essential fatty acids that you have to get from your food, and so you'll need to make sure you're getting those. And if it's vegan, you need to make sure that there are the essential amino acids that you're getting. And other than that, we mentioned the kosher stuff today. I think the way to look at that is that's the premium fuel. And so if you want the premium fuel, that's the premium fuel. It's well documented. You can easily go look and say, okay, is this in that group? Does that mean that pork is illegal? Absolutely not. Is junk food illegal? Absolutely not. We've got evidence of that, right? And so, but I think that, Paul said, all things are legal, but not all things are helpful. And so we need to be moving into that domain where we understand what is helpful. So, thank you, God. I brought way more than we're going to have time to talk about. That's good news. But any other questions? So about what we'll do this next week. Is there any questions about what you'd eat or what you can't eat? Okay, I'll give you my notes and it'll have it on there. Of course, you can look it up on the internet, but and it's in the Bible too. But so, but yeah, so go ahead and get your measurements and record them. Do your questionnaire on the symptom questionnaire. And just put it away then, and we'll pull that back out at the end of the month and redo it. And if you would give it to me then, I'd love to kind of keep track on, Lord, are we moving anything? Are we moving anybody? Because I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised.
I don't think it has to take so long. So that we'll do today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, and I think you'll feel well enough. It's like I'd written down here, cutting out processed sugars, ultra-chemically injected processed food gives your body a chance to show you it can feel better. Now, isn't that a cool concept that your body is going to show you that it can feel better?
And you can do it as slow as or fast as you want. I've talked to some people and they have all this stuff in their pantry already. They can't afford to go buy all new groceries right now. So they just incorporated the old with the new. You can use up that stuff. I mean, you already bought it. You might as well use it. But then when you go to buy the new stuff, I've had people tell me it's too expensive. It's not any more expensive than the number of processed foods that you had to buy to feel fulfilled. You don't have to buy nearly as many or as much of the other to feel full. You feel full longer. You're not buying 14 bags of chips in a week. You're not buying, you're buying one head of cauliflower. And you can make chips out of cauliflower. You can make chips out of zucchini. I make cheese chips. You can make, if you still want your salty, you want your sharp, there's ways to do that. So, and hopefully I think one of the nights we'll talk about the different recipes, the different things that you can do, that you can cook, to using olive oil versus vegetable oils. Those little tricks that will just speed everything up.
Okay.
Somebody asked me, want a little coffee with you, and it is. I don't taste it. No, I remember back when I like a.
Yeah. So what?
Sugar all the time.
So what you bring up is a very good point, and that is that sugar is the most addictive chemical on the planet. And so if you're addicted to a drug, what do you see has to happen? Even our pharmaceuticals. What happens when you start a blood pressure medicine after 6 months to a year? You have to increase the dose, right? Because our body is smart enough to develop a tolerance. It says, that's not what I need in here, so I'm going to block that. So we have to go with more and more to get the same effect, and the dopamine release is what you're looking for in sugar. And so pretty soon we're on 3 meds to control blood pressure, right? Why? Tolerance. God's body is phenomenal. But So yeah, that's what's happening there, and we didn't talk about. Maybe we'll talk next time about the sugar substitutes. If you're going to go that way, I'm not sure any of them are good, but if you're going to go, it needs to be a monk fruit or stevia. But even there, those things are 1,000 times more sugary tasting than sugar. And so we still go back to these same problems, and then we get into some issues with they mess with the way insulin works in your body. And so I had some talking about that to do, but we need to kind of finish up tonight. Any other questions? Barb? Okay. Pastor?
Say this, and it's I'm putting this on the internet that I'm going to take this journey, and I just invite anybody, those watching the internet, even if you're getting this even later, whatever. But I'm taking this journey. I'm doing the waist thing. I'm doing the hip thing. I'm putting down where I stuffy nose and problems I have, and I just want to say this, that as a pastor, that I believe the church is coming to some very unique days. We are in our nation. We are in the world. We preach here at this church. We're living in the last days. This church, meaning the church has got to be on its best game plan to go forward to accomplish what we need to accomplish. And I'll just be honest, I think a large part of the church is sick physically. I don't know where to go with it. I'm going to go on this journey, and I'm inviting you, pointing toward the internet camera, because I think there'll be more watching it even by the internet than live. Take this journey with me, and let's see what happens at the end of June.
I agree. The church has got to be battle ready. Battle ready. And I mean, you've got to be living under a rock to know that we are being assaulted on every level. Every level. And the enemy has to be the coordinator of all this, because humans could not coordinate the assault as efficiently as they are being executed. So that leaves us with no option but to put on the full armor of God and be ready to stand and endure whatever we need to do. And I agree, the church is not ready. We talked about that this morning. That's my heart cry when I go to work, is that 80% of the people I'm seeing are so sick. So sick. All right. Thank you, guys. God bless.